As a young girl, today's Comfort Kills guest was dreaming, declaring, and delivering results. It wasn't until college when Crystal Church found herself facing challenges of addiction and struggled off and on with sobriety. Her academia suffered until she hit rock bottom and committed to recovery. In 2020, Crystal celebrated her 14 years of long-term recovery. Throughout her life, she has created a path to achieve her dreams, no matter the adversity. She believes if you can dream it, you can declare and deliver it. And Crystal is here today to prove it to you. Hi, welcome, Crystal. I'm so excited to have you on my show today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Crystal, I'm really excited to really get to know who Crystal Church is. I don't know if I've had a chance to mention this to you during our meet and greet, but formerly, so as a trade, I'm a registered nurse by trade, but formerly I did work as an addiction treatment at an addiction treatment facility. So I do have some knowledge in this area. I would never say that I'm an expert, but I do have some knowledge, and I always find it so incredible when I meet people who have these stories where they've been sober for X amount of years. And I just think it's super, super incredible. And just thank you for being here today and sharing your story.
Absolutely. I'm honored. I'm absolutely honored.
So let's go ahead and get started with what your childhood looked like as a dreamer. You'd mentioned on your website and you mentioned during our discussion that you were always a dreamer. What did that look like for Crystal?
Yeah, that's a great question. Good start. So I had a really amazing grandmother in my life who
Okay.
was the original dream weaver. And really, her dreaming started with crafting. If she saw something, she could absolutely make it, sew
Mm,
it, needle point it, you name it. And
yeah.
so I was role modeled by someone that I absolutely adored, that anything is really possible. So little things like I remember loving Barbies as a little girl, and I remember thinking, I want to create a Barbie house. I don't want to buy a Barbie house. I want to create a Barbie house.
Mhm.
So I dreamed up all of these things I could make with those styrofoam egg cartons, and I
Okay.
made a pool, and I made a bathroom, and I would
Oh,
use the little
wow.
egg place to make
Yeah.
a sink. So I just was always dreaming up something to
Mhm.
do and to keep myself busy.
Yeah.
So, and kids, they're uninhibited, right? They
Mhm.
think that they can fly. And it's not until later into adulthood that I think we begin to stifle our dreams,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah. So, well, that's awesome, and I love that you said you had a grandmother who just was able to craft anything. You want it, you dream it, and you make it become a reality. My mother was a tailor, and so she was always big on making sure, like, if I wanted a certain dress that I saw at the store, well, you know what, we're not buying that. Mom's gonna go home and try and make the exact same thing that she just saw, and so she was always able to take what she saw and turn it into reality in her own crafty way. And it was just always so unique. And we grew up poor, but my mom always made us feel like we had everything. No matter what we asked for, if she couldn't pay for it, she created it in her own kind of way. And so that's really special. It's great to have family members like that. So did you ever get to learn how to do arts and crafts like grandma did?
Absolutely. I'm still very creative to this
Yeah.
day. I love to crochet and
Okay.
paint and draw,
Uh-huh.
very creative. And as part of my coaching business, I always doodle while
Uh-huh.
I'm speaking with a client.
Yeah.
And then I add color to it. And it's something I send them every time we speak and connect because it serves as notes.
Uh-huh.
And while I am doodling, it unlocks a whole new level of creativity in my coaching as well.
Wow. I like the way the two connects. So definitely want to touch more on that in a little bit. But wow, that's pretty awesome. So, in our meet and greet, you had discussed some of the struggles that you had after you left for college, I believe it was. So as a mom who has a 17-year-old who's leaving for college in August, we're still waiting to hear back from some of his colleges, but we're very excited, but that there's a fear, there's a fear that no matter what I've done here raising him as a child under my roof, that things can and may change when he's out there on his own. So can you tell us a little bit about what your journey looked like when all of that kind of unraveled?
Right. Absolutely. Yes. I think that some of the most profound words are to trust the process, trust that you did
Mm-hmm.
the best you could with your kiddo, and he will be fine. For
Mm-hmm.
me, the path of addiction that was really ignited in my journey from high school to college was
Mm-hmm.
predisposed as a young girl. You know, I grew up in my dad's side of the family was alcoholic. So there was a lot of alcohol around at all times. We were allowed to socially drink as young kids. I
Mm-hmm.
remember feeling what I now know as intoxicated at about age 10
Oh, wow.
for the for the first time because
Wow.
we would get little drinks,
Mm.
and the more the adults around us got intoxicated, the more we would ask for more and they would give in. And I just remember this warm, fuzzy, kind of goofy feeling that
Yeah.
later I was like, oh, wow, I think that I got drunk as a 10-year-old, right?
Wow.
So I was a normal high school student who experimented here and there, and when I got to college, I was able to go and live on campus
Mm-hmm.
for 1 year. I had a full ride scholarship for 1 year, and that just opened Pandora's box to
Right.
access to parties, access to all kinds of people that I had never met before, and before I knew it, it was the main focus for me was the
Mm-hmm.
social aspect. And
Right.
I'd been an excellent student in high school, and I figured, oh, college will be a breeze just like high school. I won't need to study, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And so I remember as a freshman, my roommate and I were really proud that we were drunk like 340 out of 365 days in the year. And so there was no way I could be successful in college with partying as the focus.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So that's where, you know, I didn't want to admit it, but I knew there was an issue.
Mm-hmm. So, at what point did you realize? Was it your first year, your second year? Was it after college? At what point did you realize that you needed to do something to change, and you started taking steps towards sobriety? Because you said there were multiple attempts as well. Can we discuss that a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first attempt at sobriety was pre 21.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, I want to be sober, and it was because I had had a binging weekend that involved other substances besides alcohol, and it
Mm-hmm.
really scared me. It really scared me to be that out of control. So
Mm-hmm.
I entered into treatment, my choice, and I remember consciously thinking, there's no way I can choose sobriety for the rest of my life and miss turning 21.
Mm,
So there, as much as I wanted it, I also wanted to turn 21 and have the party fun as well.
right.
So that attempt at sobriety didn't
Yeah.
work. And in my college career, my degree is in community health education. So I was really kind of not walking the walk and talking the talk because I was practicing, using drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I was even allowed to teach an alcoholism course where I was sober for the quarter that I taught that course. And then when I was done, I went back to partying.
Hmm.
And so I had my first child when I went back to school and finished my degree. So I was 23. So I was kind of an older student anyway, made it through college. Um, didn't even work in my field professionally
Mm-hmm.
because addiction took over and I couldn't pass a drug test
Mm-hmm.
because I was using marijuana and whatever else substance came my way, I was all for using it.
Right.
Um, and because I was able to function in
Uh-huh.
society in a way that I thought was fine, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't see that I really had a problem. I'm 52 now, so 14 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I got sober because of a law enforcement intervention.
Okay.
Basically, I got married, we had moved,
Uh-huh.
and I got a DUI, and then I got a domestic violence charge. And so I got caught up in the court system in the state we were living in,
Mm-hmm.
and I began treatment in that state. And then we moved back to my home state of Washington State. And
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'll just move back and I won't have to do treatment.
Mm.
Well, in this modern day, I went to get my driver's license and it came up in the system that, oh, your driver's license is on hold until you continue your compliance with the courts. So
Wow.
that's when I finally entered into treatment and began to take it seriously. And it was in that same time frame that I found out I was pregnant with my last child.
Okay.
So I went to treatment outpatient, which is you go at night and you're integrated into society and during the day as someone 4 months pregnant, and I began to grow my belly in treatment. And if that was so demeaning to me. I felt so judged by people, that I was a horrible person because people make assumptions about, oh, she's using while she's pregnant, all of those things.
Yeah.
So it was the thought of losing that child that made me stay sober. And then once you get enough sobriety under your belt, you can do it for yourself. However, that was why I was able to do it, because for the first time in my life, I was choosing this unborn child to do it for the unborn child.
Wow, Crystal. So what I'm hearing is that in your sobriety journey, what I found with a lot of the patients that we had when I worked in the addiction medicine area was that our patients, if they were coming in because mom and dad or sister or brother or cousin brought them in and dragged them by the back of their neck, their collar, and drag them in, they weren't going to stay there for very long. They're going to play by the rules, walk the walk, but they weren't going to be there for long term because it will just take one party, one phone call from a friend from their former circle to get them back into their old habits. And so we saw a lot of that yo-yoing of wanting to because they wanted to make everybody else happy, but not wanting it badly enough for themselves to make the change. And so what I hear with you is it took the pregnancy and what you felt was the stigma against you during the pregnancy to change that. And sometimes that's what it takes for a successful recovery, is that one pivotal moment. And whatever that is, something finally clicks with those individuals. And that's when they're finally like, okay, you know what? I'm in this, I'm taking it seriously, and I'm going to do this for myself and for, the people around me, but it's for myself first and foremost. And I think putting yourself first and realizing it's about you, becomes really incredibly important, and it helps with the success of recovery as well. What do you think about that?
100% spot on. Long-term recovery for me was sustainable and achievable when I really started to work on myself, because there's a reason that we medicate, right? There's a reason for me that I loved being out of control, out of my mind, out of my body. And I think early on, I wasn't really ready to face all of that. And because it's a lot of hard work, right? We're quick fix society. We want things to just be fixed. We want to take a pill and be better. And that's not part of this process or this journey. You really get to do the work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, lots of work. And it's not just your own personal work, it's work from those around you as well. So first you have to do what's right by removing those in your circle. But then next you have to make sure that those in your circle are supporting you and not enabling you, not saying, oh, well, just give it time. She or he will be right back where they were before 2 months ago, and so having that circle is so incredibly important. And that's the one thing that we always preached when I worked in that area is making sure those individuals have identified who their safe people are, and knowing who their sponsors are, knowing who they can call when they need to. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess not unique situation. However, one of the challenges for me was I had to cut ties with my dad's side of the family because they are still an alcoholic family and they weren't supportive. They were actually the first to say, hey, you want a beer? And be like, no, I'm sober. Oh, yeah, right. And then what you spoke about people expecting you to mess up, to their defense, you've burnt a lot of bridges in active addiction, and you get to regain trust. I got to regain the trust of my kids, my mom and her side of the family. And so it is work. And I also had to learn to trust myself. I had to learn that I could enjoy life sober. That was that probably took a good year for me to even, people be like, oh, how's sobriety? I'm like, it sucks. I hate it. It's boring. There's nothing to do. I don't have any friends, right? So yeah, it's an
Yeah.
interesting journey.
Yeah. You just didn't have the right friends, right? So now when you look back retrospectively 14 years ago, you just didn't have the right friends because the friends that you used to have were the ones that you were partying with. So now that
Yes,
you've essentially lost them or you've disconnected from them so that you can be sober, you realize it's kind of boring because you don't have that circle of friends who are always sober. And so it's a little bit of finding yourself and finding who you are back in society again, and just reestablishing new relationships and finding those people who are there to support you.
absolutely. 100% agree.
Amazing. Awesome. So what are some of the what are some of the other challenges that you felt like you faced during your sobriety and just maintaining for 14 years? Surely it doesn't go without saying that it's not a one and done. You know, you've achieved 1 month, 1 year, 2 years. Like it's not. It's constantly. You still have to work on it. And I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult that is, or finding yourself in situations where I don't know. Let's say New Year's Eve and everybody around you is drinking, and so how are you able to maintain your sobriety all these years?
Well, the first thing I did was just stop going. Again, I stayed in my community, so I stopped
Mhm,
going to bars.
mhm.
I stopped going places that would set me up for failure, which is
Yeah,
what felt so isolating.
yeah.
When I was first court mandated to go to treatment, one of the things that you're also mandated to do is to go to AA.
Mhm,
And I went and I fulfilled that requirement. And it wasn't what really lit me up for long-term sobriety. And not because I don't believe in the organization and,
mhm,
the
mhm,
12 steps and traditions, mostly because being a local in this little tiny town, I knew too much about everyone. I didn't feel like it was a safe place for me to really talk through things.
mm, mhm.
And so that's what
Yeah.
started me diving into the internet and connecting with people and where I heard about life coaching. And my first experience with a life coach was a woman who was uh, in Overeaters Anonymous. And she had
Mm,
created this program around life coaching and addiction recovery. And her and I connected on a really deep level. And that was my introduction
mhm.
to the whole emotional intelligence world.
Yeah.
Another thing that was really difficult for me was summer, right? Was just changing what I would do. Like summer for me was always about going to the river and drinking. And
Mhm,
so I didn't go to the river for a while until I
mhm,
was strong enough to not be
mhm.
triggered and want to drink.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important, important. Finding those triggers and eliminating that until you feel like you're ready. It doesn't have to be forever. And, it doesn't have to be 1 month and it doesn't have to be 1 year. It's anywhere in between and everybody's so individualized and different that it's not one size fit all. So thank you for that.
Yes. And I
Um,
think that's a really important point. Traditional treatment 20 years ago was one way, one size fits all. And what I really
mhm,
love about today's world is that we're realizing that my sobriety is different than the next person's sobriety, which
yeah.
means there has to be multiple ways for
Mhm,
people to get sober, whether it's medically assisted, it doesn't matter.
mhm.
It's whatever works for the individual.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing up medically assisted treatment. Is I think a lot of people misunderstand what it truly means, and a lot of people who don't understand addiction as well as they do, and they don't understand the types of treatments that are available, they want to very quickly just assume that, oh, well, you're just trading one drug for another. And that's not the case. And that, like back to even just, something that's very relevant right now with the vaccination that's out there, there's a science behind it. There's a reason why it was created. It was tested over and over and over again to work effectively. And the reason why it doesn't work effectively is maybe that wasn't right for the person to begin with, or maybe because we've removed the drug, but we haven't removed the environment or the person from the environment. And so there's so many variables that can affect a person's sobriety and their success in recovery. And medical assisted medication
Yeah.
assisted treatment, MAT, is so important to consider. But there's not just one way, and there's not just one type of medication that can help. There are so many different types out there that, we try everything with our patients until we find what works for them. And at the same time, it's not just the medication piece, but it's coupled with the therapy piece as well. So those two things are super, super important
Yes.
in recovery.
I agree. And I think that, we cannot have this conversation without talking about judgment,
Mm-hmm.
because the stigma around addiction and judgment
Yeah.
from others is to me why someone can't see why medically assisted treatment would be beneficial. And I think because there are so many things in this world that we can experience and go through, we don't want to put ourselves in those positions until we're forced to. So unless you are someone who's experienced addiction or a loved one has experienced addiction,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to have the lens of judgment. I
Yes.
completely understand that.
Yeah. And even before I went into addiction medicine, I had no idea. I was never, or I think I was never around people who were addicted. And I realized after being in the industry that I grew up with an addicted father, and I had no idea he was a functioning alcoholic. You know,
Hmm.
I remember in elementary school, I have never told this story publicly, but in elementary school, the counselor went around, had this piece of paper, had everybody fill it out, and it was just like a little questionnaire, as far as like, do you feel safe at home? Do you feel like your parents are hitting you, or are you feeling like, are you afraid to go home because you're being hit? So like a lot of domestic abuse type questions. But then the other question is, do you have a parent who drinks? How often do they drink? Is it one beer? Is it one glass? Is it two? Is it three? Is it five? I think, I'm pretty sure I checked like three or four, and it was consistently every single night. And then suddenly I find myself, this was like in second or third grade, I find myself in this group that met once a week with the counselor. And I had no idea until I was an adult. And I finally had the aha moment that it was because of this one particular questionnaire that I filled out that all fingers pointed to having an addicted parent at home, and I didn't even know it. And they created the support group without ever speaking about it. But I remember going out every single week, once a week, at the exact same time to sit with the counselor, and there was like five of us there, just having a chat, about nothing.
Right.
But um,
And that
yeah.
was one of the areas that I got to work in when I
Mhm.
came back into the workforce after having enough sobriety under my belt to be stable. I worked at a local high school as the intervention prevention specialist. And
Mm.
so it wasn't second graders, it was high schoolers. However, the concept is the same in that kids like
Mhm.
me exposed to alcohol at an early age by someone
Mhm.
who's very influential in your life makes you at risk
Mhm.
to drink and use drugs yourself.
Yeah.
So that was the group that you were slid into, and I love that you put those all together. However long it took, right?
As an adult, I think it was after me working in the industry and realizing, just probably having like a nonchalant conversation with my husband about, yeah, and then this one time we all went into this group, like I was put into this group, and then it all kind of like came together as an adult. I'm like, whoa, that's what they were doing the whole time, was bringing us all together and giving us a safe space to speak about it. But I don't think any of us knew why we were there, and so we never spoke about it. And
Yeah.
but I'm kind of really happy that they did that, because it's a good memory for me to have to know that schools are looking at this, even back in the 80s when it was not that big of a topic. It was still stigmatized, but they were looking for something, and they were protecting the kids by creating these types of groups as well. So I didn't understand addiction the way that I did until after I joined the industry. So I didn't understand MAT. I didn't understand that you can fall off the wagon and come back, and fall off the wagon and come back. And I didn't understand, well, why can't you just stop? And so I was very ignorant myself. So 100%, when you were saying earlier that judgment, the lens of judgment, people have it, and it's very real. And I admit myself, I didn't understand it enough before to know any better. So I unknowingly had it as well. And until I went into the industry and realized and started meeting our patients and heard the stories, that I was just like, oh wow, these people really need help, and they're here for help. And so let's take the judgment piece out of it, and let's find them help. Let's get help for them. So
Absolutely. And it's interesting too that there are addictions that are more socially acceptable, right? Because you can be a workaholic, which I'm absolutely prone to. I have to be conscious about
yeah.
not working all the time. And you can be addicted to food. And I think I've recently
Mhm.
lost 75 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So
Congrats.
thank you. One of the things that I gave myself permission to do in sobriety was eat because, well, you've quit everything else. You must have a
Ah.
reward. And so
Mm.
um, I think that food might be one of the hardest addictions because I don't have to go to the bar. I don't
Yeah.
have to buy alcohol. And I have to eat three
Yeah.
times a day. So consciously,
Mhm.
I have to more often make a healthy decision in weight loss and now maintaining
Yeah.
the weight loss. So it's very interesting to be, I guess, an addictive personality. Really,
Uh-huh.
some people don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about that. What did you do? And at what point did you finally decide enough was enough and you were going to cut the eating habits and work on that as well?
Well, because of my daughter. So my kids have been pivotal in
Mhm.
allowing me to see what's important in life. And my daughter's the oldest. She's 29. And we both had a weight issue. And she began the Ideal Protein program, which I don't know if you've heard of it. It's through
Mm-mm.
a doctor's office. It's
Okay.
basically resetting your metabolism by low carb, high protein
Mm.
diet,
Mhm.
fresh veggies, right? I mean,
Gotcha.
what we all know.
Right.
However, it's structured and it costs money. So you've
Uh-huh.
got skin in the game and you've got a health coach also.
Mhm.
So she jumped in and did it, and within like 3 months, she had already dropped 30 pounds. Was very
Wow.
successful, and I thought, I'm gonna do this with her,
Mhm.
and that was the magic ticket is having that accountability partner,
Mhm.
and having it be someone I really cherished my relationship with that I could be honest with as well, and so we in and also in the pandemic I thought, well, this is a great time, everybody's
Mhm.
talking about gaining weight, I need to get this under control. What
Mhm.
better time to jump into a new way of eating?
Mhm.
So she's lost 130 pounds, I've
Wow.
lost 75, and between the two of us, that's an adult man, and
Yes.
it's changed our lives. I
Yes.
mean, health wise, how I feel when I look at myself in the mirror, how
Yeah.
people react to us.
Uh-huh.
Because again, this conversation came up about judgment,
Uh-huh.
and you are judged. I
Mhm.
know I judge people who are overweight, I make assumptions. And
Mhm.
so I don't feel that anymore. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's awesome. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
205 pounds between the two of you. And I'm pretty
Isn't that?
sure it's and counting, right? Maybe?
Yes, yes. It's incredible. It's incredible to think about. Like people don't even recognize her.
That's
It's amazing.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations to you and your daughter for taking the journey to their hand and you supporting her. Really, it came about with you supporting her. Whether you felt like you were doing it for yourself or not, it was she was 3 months in, and you're like, oh, let me join her. But there was still that motherly support and being there for her as well. So congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
I love hearing that.
And
I need.
she's great support for me as well. It was
Mhm.
it was the perfect accountability system,
Oh,
really.
that's so perfect. That's so perfect. I need a buddy like that for sure. So what are the best resources that you have that helped you through your journey to get to where you are today? Like what would you suggest for people who are dealing with addiction, who have tried and feel like they may, fall off the wagon or just not feeling to themselves and they need something to help them?
Yes. Connection, one word, connection. We can't
Mhm.
not do it alone. And
Mhm.
whatever person you feel connected to, stay connected. And maybe that person will change. First,
Mhm.
my first connection was the intervention. It was treatment. It was a treatment group of people. And then it was AA. And then it was life coaching. And so, whatever that connection is that you feel like you can be yourself and bear your soul, that is
Mhm.
absolutely key. And then, one of my favorite acronyms that came out of treatment is HALT. And
Okay.
you've probably heard it. And it's if you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, those things trigger any poor decision or
Okay.
relapse, right?
Yeah.
And one of the other powerful things that I learned about relapse is that it actually happens 72 hours before it really happens. So
Mm.
if you allow yourself to be hungry, angry, lonely, or tired over an extended amount of time, that can trigger you into relapse.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that really boils down to self-care.
Yeah.
And that's something we don't practice really well in active addiction.
Yeah. Huh. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for that. I think that I've never heard halts before, so thank you for that. That I'm gonna have to write it down and just like put it on the mirror, and
There
just
you
remind
go.
myself, and put it on the fridge. Bad decisions are happening here too.
There you go. Right? I get that.
So, all right, Crystal. So, how did you use your pain and turn it into purpose? You've touched on the coaching, so let's talk a little bit more about that. And then I know you even have a book out there. So, let's start getting into like what are you doing these days with what your past used to be, and where are you at now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, without my pain, my
Mhm,
adversity, what I experienced as a young person, I wouldn't have purpose.
mhm,
It is really what has given me my gifts as an intuitive coach, as a powerful interruption,
mhm.
as a person who can see through the veil.
Yeah.
So I spent so many years in that victim mindset that
Mhm,
life happened to me and oh poor Crystal, and that is what kept me stuck. And it was when
mhm,
I found coaching and emotional intelligence work that I was able to see, oh my gosh, you are so stuck in victim. And then
yeah.
I began to look at life with a lens of gratitude and see where life is happening for me.
Mm,
That is really what culminated into Dreamweaver Consulting.
mhm,
And then the book, I was invited by a powerful coach to join her weekend bestseller in a weekend course. And because it was virtual, because of the pandemic, I was like, sure,
mhm.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wanted to write a book, but let's do it. And so out of that weekend course, I realized that this story of my life had been brewing for all these years, 50 years.
Mhm, mhm,
And that through all of that adversity, I was still able to achieve dreams. How did I do that? So I took the structure of my favorite dream, declare, deliver trio word and I
mhm,
expanded it into those 7 steps to delivering on your dreams. So the
mhm,
book is part memoir, how I got here, right? And then part self help, because each of those first 7 chapters dives into my story and then a tool. So, a tool that allows you to interact with the book and explore dreaming.
mhm.
And so, um, that's really, I mean, presently where I'm at is being in the flow of what feels like the right decision. I'm able to trust myself now.
Yeah, yeah. So how did dreaming play into your success?
Well, if I wasn't able to dream that I could achieve sobriety, I wouldn't be
Mm,
there, right? As a
yeah.
young girl, I just I saw my grandma do it, and if I wanted something, then I would mow lawns and make money to get it.
Mhm,
Um, when I started emotional intelligence, you're encouraged to dream. You're encouraged to declare, make a big declaration. What is it you want to really shift or pivot in your life? And I thought,
mhm,
well, I want to create a bridge out of my nonprofit world. And I dream of being a consultant. Well, as
mhm,
soon as you declare that out loud, then
mhm.
you put a system in working backwards to get to your dream. And that's where the rest of those 7 steps really
Yeah.
flushed out the dreaming, the declaring, then the designing of your dream, the
Uh-huh.
documenting of your dream, the detailing. And then step 6 is the delay, which I've never been good at, right?
Mhm.
Waiting,
Yeah.
right? Being quiet, waiting for messages, waiting for timing. And then after the delay is the delivery.
Yeah.
And it all starts with a dream. If we don't give ourselves permission to dream, how do we know what we're capable of?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I had given up on being fit. I thought, well, you can accomplish everything, but you're
Mhm.
going to be fat. And then one day
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, why am I settling? Here
Uh-huh.
I am, dream weaver, and I'm going to settle?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You know, and thank you for that because I really need it like that. You don't realize it, but that was like an air slap to my face. And the reason why I say that is because I've worked with the coach on health and fitness, and one of the things that one of the realization that I came to was that it was kind of like self-sabotage. Like I allowed myself to be highly educated. I allowed myself to be excel in my career. I allowed all these other things to like achieve the best of the best that I possibly can get to for those different types of areas in my life. But the one thing I said that was just like, okay, that's the back burner was my health and my fitness. And I'm just like, it's not important. You know, it's okay to be fat if you're smart. It's okay to be fat if you're, you know, at your most successful point in your career. And you know, and then like you're saying, so now here you are as Dreamweaver, why would you allow that? And here I am as Comfort Kills, why would I allow that? I'm just comfortable and I'm complacent in my size and my weight, and I'm not doing something about it. But I know I need to, as a nurse, I know I need to. I know it's going to be my ultimate demise is if I allow myself to continue to self-sabotage and allow myself to think that, you know, it's okay, that I don't need to do anything to change. So thank you for that, because I really needed that today.
Well, I'm glad that it worked. And an interesting thing that I think I needed to rationalize in my mind as well was that I get to love myself no matter where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that was also a difficult task, unconditional love, so that I loved myself. And then I was like, and yet I'm tired of bending over this role to get my shoes on. And so as cliche as loving yourself first sounds, I think that was important as well. And now all of this is being reinforced by someone in my life is terminally ill. And when you're looking at that, you look back and think, well, what could I have done differently? And so that reinforces for me that, okay, this is good. This is prevention.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. That's right. Well, you know, I think you bring a lot of great wealth and knowledge to us, and I think there's a lot for people to learn from you yet. So what is your ideal type of clientele? Is it somebody who, what are you looking for that's a perfect match for you as a coach for them?
Yeah. Someone who's ready to choose in. The same concept as getting sober. If you're not ready for this type of coaching, we won't be a fit. I am a loving interruption, and I do interrupt patterns and behaviors. So if you're looking for someone to just, you know, placate you and feed your soul with what they see great in you, that's not the only thing I do. I'm interruptive. I hold people accountable. And so I think you also need to have a base knowledge of emotional intelligence. You know, so my ideal client is a woman like you and I that is powerful already and looking to shift or pivot in the world. And right now is perfect because women are moving into all areas of life. And not to take over and not to take anything away from our male counterparts, to come beside them and really give a different perspective on things. And so I love to say to women, what do you want? And then let's find a way to do it. So powerful, ready to jump all in. That's who I'm looking for. And ready to dream.
Yeah, ready to dream. That's important. So what are your plans, Crystal, for the next 6 months to a year? Any exciting things happening in your near future?
Well, interestingly enough, I will just throw a little crazy nugget out there that you didn't even know about before we set this up. So a week ago, well, in October, my ex-husband, who I've remained friends with, my ex-husband of 12 years, was the person diagnosed with terminal illness. And so we have come together and have decided that we are going to be a couple again. So last week we got married. And so that's why I moved. I'm here now in his home with myself and our youngest son together. And so really my next 6 months is living present in every moment, enjoying every single moment, which is a really powerful place to be, while I, you know, get the word out about my book, do a virtual book tour, get on as many podcasts as possible, and continue to enroll people into the proprietary process that I came up with in Dreamweaver Consulting because I'm seeing such amazing results.
Mm-hmm.
People are leveling up in their life like it's crazy. And it's like I think to myself, wow, I created this process. Well, it was definitely downloaded, channeled, whatever you want to call that.
Uh-huh.
Intuitively, I was able to create an incredible process. And that process is what is helping me be
Mm-hmm.
present in my new situation, right? To look at it as a gift and to change that dance that we did unsuccessfully,
Mm-hmm.
rewrite the
Wow.
ending of this love story.
Ah, that's beautiful. And I'm sorry to hear that he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, but I am, excited for you with what you're doing now and rewriting your story and just giving it putting it all back in there and rediscovering love between the two of you again.
And that's really fun. I'm like, wow, I am
Yeah.
being reminded of the things I loved about him.
Uh-huh.
And it's really a very fun process.
Wow. Well, congratulations to the two of you.
Thank
There's
you.
there's just so much to like congratulate about. I can't even believe this. This is awesome.
You know, if you would have told me 3 months ago that my life would be what it is today, I would have said, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you making this up?"
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. All right, Crystal. So if I gave you a billboard, what would you put on the billboard?
If you can dream it, you can declare it, and you can, with support, deliver it.
All right. With support delivered. I love it. The right support is always key.
Hmm.
So sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Was there anything that didn't ask you that we could have discussed that you would like to still discuss?
I think that you did a great job with the interview. What I would really emphasize to anyone is
Mhm.
that, life happens for you.
Mhm.
And when you are able to flip that lens and see that every single thing is happening for you and
Yeah.
find the gift, it just feels less
Yeah.
less of a struggle.
It does. It does. And that's a great final thing to leave our listeners with. And it's so incredibly important to just find that in yourself. Absolutely. So, Crystal, where can people find you if they would like to reach out to you and learn more about your book, learn more about your 7 steps, learn more about just your coaching services?
Yes. Well, I did forget to mention that the book is on
Uh-huh.
Amazon.
Oh,
I set a goal
yay!
to be an Amazon bestseller, and I did do that. The
Congrats!
following day, I hit the Amazon bestseller and new release.
Very
So it's
nice.
on Amazon. I'm on Facebook, Dreamweaver Consulting. My website is dreamweaver.consulting. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all the social media channels,
Okay.
and you can get me through my website or on Facebook. And if you want an autographed copy of the book, just shoot me a message, and I'd love to send one out to you.
Yes, yes, I would love one, by the way.
Okay,
That's my
well, you know
message.
how to get a hold of me.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for coming out today and just sharing your vulnerable story and just, telling us the story of your life and everything that it is. And just so many congratulations to you and all the successes that you've had thus far. And really, really excited for where things are going for you. But thank you so much for coming out today and having a chat with me.
Thank you. It was incredible. You're fun to talk with.
Thank you. All right.